Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We are joined by Jim Keith, and you are with Keith Funeral and Cremation Services.
That is correct, yes.
Right here locally?
Right on Arrow Road on the south end. But we service everybody in Beaufort and Jasper counties as well. But the office is on Arrow Road.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get into this business? You've been doing this 29 years.
29 years. I was playing golf with a guy who owned a funeral home, and one day he asked me if I would come in and drive the hearse on a Saturday. And I said, all right. And then
29 years later.
29 years later, I went to school and, yeah, been licensed. So
that's great. And so as a funeral director, I know from the passing of my father, there was something just magical that happened when we teamed up with a funeral director. I mean, it was like a burden was lifted and we felt so loved and cared for. Is that kind of what attracts you to it, or?
Well, some people have called it a ministry, and I don't take it quite that far.
Sure.
But it's a way to help people and get them through the worst time of their life. And a good funeral director will do that. A good funeral director will do everything for you and not nickel and dime you with charging you for every little thing. Unfortunately, that's the way the business has gone, and you just have to hold your ground.
Well said. And so now what makes you all different and better?
Different and better. Well, I tell you what I tell people is that we're the same. A lot of people on Hilton Head have come down from Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, Kentucky, and they all had a family funeral director that they went to for years and years. And that's what the values that we're trying to bring. We're trying to be the hometown
just
funeral
like home.
director. Yeah, we hometown funeral director.
And so local is better.
Owned, locally owned. Look at Hilton Head and Beaufort County. Everybody talks about being local. You know, you see that everywhere from the Piggly Wiggly to the clothing stores.
We're all transplants.
And we are.
With the exception of the ones who actually have local on their cars, in the hats, local. Right.
Yeah, but you wonder about those people too sometimes. But we're the only locally owned funeral home on the island. And being local gives us an opportunity to kind of do things that the big corporations can't do.
Be in the community.
Be in the community, meet the people at the grocery store, talk to them, see how they're doing. We can maybe do some discounts for some people that maybe are having a bad time, or we can stretch out some payments, or we can do some things like that. You can work with people. Yeah, we can work with people.
Yeah, and so what about for veterans? You have special services?
Yeah, my son was in Afghanistan, my dad was in Vietnam. I made the mistake of not going into the military. When I got out of college, I went to the Navy and said, where are the jets? I have a pilot's license and a college degree. And I had also had bad vision, so they didn't want me then.
Not happening.
But for the veterans, for instance, I never ever charge somebody to go over to Beaufort National. Some places will charge you several $100s just to take the ashes over to Beaufort National.
Yeah.
I also try to give the veterans a choice of maybe a discount here or an urn or something like that. You don't know what everybody wants, and you can't just cookie cutter say this is what I do for veterans.
Right.
So we just try to take it each one at a time. Yeah, we find out what they want.
Mindful and you embrace them.
We try.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about pre-planning a little bit. You know, it's not how you start the race, it's how you finish the race, right? And so talk about pre-planning. I mean, nobody wants to think about it, but...
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I really do a lot of pre-planning.
That's wonderful.
And usually it's a catalyst. Something happens to someone and they say, oh,
I better get ready.
Yeah, I better just get all my affairs in order, do this so the kids don't have to worry about it. Well, you don't have to prepay it. Some people do, but the most important thing is to get something written down on paper.
Plan.
Tell the kids where it is, say this is what we want, because you really don't want to have a death in the family and then 4 kids sitting around a table and 2 say mom wanted to be cremated and 2 say she never wanted to be cremated, and what are you going to do?
Sure. So, what does a pre-plan sort of look like? Like, what are the, is it just something on paper, but what does that kind of look like?
We sit down and just like it was a funeral has happened, I get all the vital statistic information. We talk about the type of services. If it's going to be a church service, then I'll give them a list of readings and music that maybe they could look at just to talk about. And one thing about pre-planning, it can be dynamic. Just because you come in today and say, I want to do this, it doesn't mean that you can't edit it or change your mind or tweak it down the road. But the one good thing is, like, if you say you wanted to be cremated and you come in and we put everything in paper and you sign some papers, your kids can't come back and say, oh no, we decided to change it.
Right.
What is done is done.
Exactly.
And that's good.
So Jim, people can just stop in and see you. We'll have your website here on the bottom third. Jim Keith Funeral and Cremation Services. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Talk of the Town.